everybody. Timing. I can only fire myself for that. How's everybody doing? I'm Daniel G. Garza, and this is the 5 o'clock episode of Put It Together Conversation. Today is January still, January 16, 2021. I'm a little off on my dates, but welcome to the show. I'm so excited. I hope you've been catching all of the shows on the series. If you have not, you can go over to YouTube and you can check out all the videos from the series of 2020 and at the start of 2021. Check those out. On Facebook, you can follow us and Put It Together Conversations podcast, and you can check out the links to all my guests, see what they're up to, follow them if you're interested in one of them. You can still be part of the conversation, so if you have any questions for any of the guests that you've been watching or any comments, I will make sure that they answer and get them. So make sure you keep us following. We are streaming on StreamYard now, so you can watch us live on Facebook, on YouTube, and Periscope, which I think is soon merging over to Twitter, so you can catch us on all three platforms. So no excuses. Make sure to follow us. And if you do, why don't you share them, subscribe to the page, and make sure that you get notifications for all the shows coming up. Today, I'm excited. My guest today, I'm going to talk more about it when we get done, but we actually go back a long way, and it's really interesting. We were talking to pre-production. But let me tell you a little bit about him. Giacomo Rosa, he founded Gacho to provide innovative business thinking and restructuring companies operating in various markets, and Rapid Target Company Incorporated for manufacturing solutions to the pharmaceutical and cosmetic packaging industries. His profound knowledge of North, Central, South American, and European economies, as well as a long experience developed in manufacturing plants, film productions, and publishing, give him a very creative entrepreneurial mindset and a resolute managerial approach. He's also working on several narrative projects through Gacho Books. He holds a Master of Liberal Arts in English Literature and Creative Writing from Harvard, a Master in Business Administration from the University of South Florida, and a Diploma in Filmmaking from the New York University. Let me go ahead and bring him on because we were talking to pre-production. We have a really cool backstory.
Yes. Hello, Daniel. Hi, how you doing? Very good. Nice to see you. And although I'm across the world from you right now, but yes, it's been almost 10 years that we know each other. So it's a great pleasure and honor to be here.
Okay. And to that, folks, I'm going to say this. It is what? It's just 2 o'clock in the morning.
There's 2:05 right now, 2:03, yes.
So, for all of you who told me when I asked you to be on the guest on my show that you don't have time, this gentleman is up at 2 o'clock in the morning on my show.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time to do this.
No, it's a great pleasure to be here, really.
Now, like I usually share with my guests of how I know, with my audience, how I know my guests. We were talking in the pre-production meeting about how we connected, and I feel weird telling the story. So can you tell the story of how we?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think it was 2012 or something like that, and I was moving from Boston to New York City. At that time, we had a small production company, film production company, with offices in Boston and New York mainly, but also in Los Angeles. And for some reason, it was a very, very special moment in my life. I was getting divorced, and the company was about to start, and we were involved with several productions. So it was a very creative and emotional time in my life, and we came across, I think we had our own social network at that time. It was kind of like a small version of Facebook, and even Facebook wasn't that big yet. And you were posting these morning TV shows every morning, and we found them very, very inspiring. So sometimes I will watch them on my own, and sometimes some of my staff will watch it together, and I will post them on our social network. And that's how we really started to know you and follow you. And it was, again, very inspiring. And then fortunately we shut down the company and we shut down the social network, so we couldn't post your videos anymore. But I think a friendship, even though it's online friendship, but started back then. And I've been following you, and the rest is history. We're here today.
Yeah, and then so I will say this, that for those of you that know the show, know that this live stream comes from a podcast. We were a podcast for 8 years and just now decided to go live stream.
Yeah.
When I was just doing the podcast, Giacomo was a guest on the show, and one of those things of the world, the file didn't come through, and something happened, and I was so irritated, and I was so upset and so embarrassed that. And then you moved, but then LinkedIn, we reconnected on LinkedIn.
Yes.
You approached me, and I was like, "Oh, you found me!" Like, yes.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was always something. There was always something about your energy that just inspired me and motivated
Thank you very much. It's reciprocal, you know. I think good spirits always find each other, you know.
me. That's
Absolutely. Yeah.
it. So here we are, and then I said, "Hey, we're doing this now. Would you like
Yep.
to be part of it?" Here is. So I very humbly say, because it is that Giacomo has been one of the people that have seen Little Mexican Productions grow from the morning tea. Okay, for those of you who are wondering, what the heck was morning tea? So when I was still on disability, I would wake up in the mornings, Monday through Friday, and at first I was getting these emails with motivational messages, and I would just read them online for people. And then I started getting messages back from folks saying, your message after that message is way more interesting than what you're reading. Just talk. And I was like, well, that's crazy. Like, who wants to hear me talk? Um, so I would wake up in the mornings, grab a cup of tea, which I should have brought the mug with me. It's in my
Yeah.
cupboard. It's in my cupboard. And so I had my tea that was the cup that I used every day, and it was morning tea with Daniel. So while I was drinking my tea, I would send up some message. But you're right. This is before like live streaming. So I would
Yeah.
record the video and then I would upload it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
wow! But
Yeah.
if you go
It
ahead.
was. I was saying it was even before Netflix. I think Netflix wasn't online yet. I think Netflix was still the CD company. You know, the DVD-ROM, whatever. You know, the DVDs and the Amazon was not even there. I mean, Amazon as a company was there, but not the streaming Amazon. And it's funny. I think YouTube was really the only thing around back then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and back then it was a big ordeal to upload your videos and do
yeah. There
all
was
that.
no live streaming. There was nothing like
Oh
that.
my
But
god!
yeah,
But who knows? We were talking earlier. Maybe morning tea will come back for a little.
yes,
Maybe
I
maybe
think you
just
should. I think you should.
maybe just for a short time. Maybe we'll do
Yeah.
everything on TV is coming back for
Yes.
maybe morning tea will be coming
Yeah.
back for it. Um,
Absolutely.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here because I've been wanting to share your story with my listeners and my
Mhm.
followers. So, Giacomo and Rosa, tell us how you put it together.
Yeah, it's my life has been very interesting because I wanted to be a filmmaker when I was in my teenagers, and I was here in Rome. Finished high school, and I went to my father and my mom, and we had a dinner. It was a nice restaurant by a lake, and actually right by the summer residence of the Pope. So very interesting, connection and karma that night. And I told my parents I wanted to be a filmmaker. And of course, like every parents, say, what the hell are you talking about? There is no money in film business. What are you thinking you're going to do? And blah, 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 blah. This is the biggest stupid idea I ever heard, as my father said. And I mean, they were supportive, but kind of like trying to push really, they really wanted to see how much I was really into it. And when finally they realized I was serious, very, very serious, my dad told me, probably the best thing you could tell me at that time, which was, listen, I don't want you to study in Italy because there is no really, I mean, Italians are really good filmmakers, but there is no really background, a school, there is no really university for film, except for one school, which is extremely impossible, very hard to get in. Only 6 people, I think, back then they used to get in. And also, even then, it was very hard. And so he told me, if you really want to do it seriously, I'm going to send you to the United States. I'll pay for your college. So you don't have to worry about that. But don't ever ask me for a penny after your graduation because you chose this path, you chose this career, so you're on your own. And it was pretty much like that. I did my college in 3 years actually instead of 4. So and it was very good. A very good friend of mine from high school, which we did all the schools together, actually, from first grade to high school together. He heard I was going to America and he wanted to come as well, so he came along and we studied together. And then we split. He went to Los Angeles. He did his master's at Cal Arts, and I remained in Florida. And my film career basically started in the 90s with short films and little commercials. Nothing really fancy, nothing really high budget, but it was paying the bills. So I learned the craftsmanship. I learned how to run the camera. And back then, talking about no streaming and nothing like that, I'm talking about the time where there was no digital. I mean, I did college. We were literally still using flatbeds for film and VHS tapes for digital. That was the digital. There was no such a thing as Final Cut Pro or anything. It wasn't even Avid. I mean, and when Avid came out, I remember even Hollywood people were complaining about it because they wanted to cut the film and they didn't want to use computers. But fast forward, I make it more professionally. So I started my first company, which is Graphic Target, which is still operational in Florida. And the idea of Graphic Target was to basically put together film productions and take care of our family business. Here in Italy, we have two factories, which started from my grandfather, and then my father took over, and we are in the third generation now. We do packaging for pharmaceutical companies. So the idea was to represent the Italian company in the United States, because most of our clients were American pharmaceutical companies. So I thought it was a good combination to have a company that will take care of the family business and at the same time take care of my creative side. And unfortunately, it wasn't always easy to sell the concept, because obviously packaging for pharmaceutical companies, motion pictures is not exactly your match. And that's why Bridge Entertainment came along, because I got married and my wife, which unfortunately now we are separated, but back then we were very much in love. So she got a job as a doctor in Boston. So we moved to Boston, and at that time Massachusetts was really becoming a very important state for filmmaking because of tax incentives. So I came across this very nice guy, Michael Connors, which unfortunately died, but he was a stage director for one of the most important theater in Boston, and we got along right away. So we decided to start the company together. And he had also had a very strong background in film productions. So what the Village Entertainment became basically was the artistic branch of Graphic Target. So Graphic Target kept on operating for the packaging business, and Bridge Entertainment really became the half spin of for film and basically only film actually at the beginning. Unfortunately, what happened is that the creative side really got hurt, because we had a lot of scripts, some that I wrote, some written by other people, even very important people. I mean, we had a couple of productions with the Oscar winners and the Emmy Award winners. I mean, really heavy people, but we couldn't get financing. And so I got really frustrated. And since I was in Boston, which is obviously a very wealthy town, very close to New York, I really started to hang out with financial people, the Wall Street type of people, trying to finance our productions. And what happened, we couldn't get a penny for our productions, but we were very interested in using my network to get into Hollywood. So I became sort of a bridge. Ironically, Bridge wasn't the name of the company because of this, but it became sort of a financial bridge. From healthy people, wealthy people in the East Coast that wanted to produce movies in the West Coast. So back then, a lot of my friends from college and also some people that I met in New York when I did my film school in New York were becoming major executives in Los Angeles. So for me, it was very easy to connect with high-end people in Los Angeles. And especially, as you well know, unfortunately, in Los Angeles, when you talk money, everybody's, you get the attention right away. You sell a script, they don't care. You come with a check, and they say, "Hey, cool." So ironically, I became, the finance guy, although I never was a finance guy, and I hate that part of the business. And so we did, convey some money from the East Coast to the West Coast. Again, I don't even know where the money went, to be honest, because we were really financing single productions. There were companies, there were conglomerate of ideas, and we will, put together people and get a little commission, for putting them together. So that kept Bridge Entertainment afloat for a few years. And then Michael unfortunately passed away, and I didn't want to keep on going alone. And also I wanted to go back to the creative side of the business. So I closed down Bridge Entertainment. I closed down all the offices. I kept only the one in Boston for a couple of years, and the one in Tampa, Florida, which is still there under Graphic Target. And a joint venture with FX Marketing, which was a company based in Tampa, and we had the exclusive rights to the Grammy Awards and the Emmy Awards magazines. So in other words, whoever goes to the Grammys night at the Staples Center gets a magazine. That magazine is given to every single celebrity that walks into the Staples Center, and then it's sold, the following week is sold nationwide, to all the, whatever book stands and whatnot.
Wow.
And so that was really a major thing. So brought me back to the high end of the entertainment business. And then we were actually negotiating the Oscars. And at that time, I just decided that things were getting still a little bit too business for me. I really wanted to be creative. And I dropped that business and I moved back to Italy. And at that moment, I started, to write novels. And that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years. And that's pretty much how I put it together.
Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to go back and start breaking some
Yes,
of this.
absolutely.
First, I want to start with, because a lot of us have been through that part where we're trying to convince our parents, no, this is what I want to do when I grow up. Like, especially if your family has a family business, like we're counting on the children to carry it on. For people out there kids or younger people who are trying to convince their parents that this is like whatever passion they have is where they want to go. What was your argument? How did you convince your parents that?
Well, it wasn't really much convincing, to be honest, because my father pretty much saw that I was for real. I mean, he didn't agree with me, and probably never really fully agreed with me, but he saw that there was passion. So he basically gave me a chance because he felt it was the right thing to do. But there wasn't really a negotiation. There wasn't really a debating. It was basically, okay, I disagree, but I'm going to let you do it and see how much you can push. So to a young kid today that wants to do it, a girl that wants to do it, I would just say, prove to your parents that you really have the talent to do it. And today, back then we didn't have any technology available. I mean, you couldn't go with your iPhone and shoot a film or shoot a video. There was nothing. I mean, there was literally just your ideas. And if you're lucky, you had maybe a VHS camera at home. You could do like a little video, but it was impossible to edit. I mean, it was impossible to make films back then. And today it is possible. I mean, you can pretty much do whatever you want out of your bedroom. So I think there is plenty of room to show your parents that you have the talent. And just go with the flow, but be sure that it's really your talent. I think the key thing is don't waste your life chasing somebody on the screen. You don't want to be, one thing is to be an audience, one thing to be actually a producer or an artist. And the fact that you like to watch something doesn't necessarily make you capable of doing that. And I think that part you have to be honest with yourself, and it at a young age if you're really cut for it or not. Then the craftsmanship improves with the years, obviously, but at day one if you're really cut for it or not. It's the same thing with sports or or anything else, or business for that matter. Or if you want to be a lawyer or a doctor, when you're 18, 19, it already. And I think again the most important thing, more than negotiating and convincing your parents, is really look at yourself in the mirror and make sure that that's really what you want to do.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times we, especially now with so much social media, we get distracted from, like, all I see is the image and it looks really pretty, but we don't know all the work that goes behind it. I feel like people fool themselves.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. A lot of people, I don't want to mention names, but you can imagine there's a lot of influencers, a lot of things which I don't agree. I mean, I don't really like the way the business is going, but you're absolutely right. These people are not there by mistake. There is so much work behind it, and young kids don't realize it's probably behind a pretty face. There is probably 40 people in a room walking, step by step, how to do a certain video, how to do a certain influencer video, YouTuber or whatnot, and it's not easy. It's a full-time job, and
Yeah.
and you need,
So,
yeah.
so tell me a little bit about coming to America to go to
Yeah.
school. Had you been to the United States before?
Yes, I have. My family used to come every summer as tourists. None of my relatives or family ever lived in America, but since I was a kid, my parents loved it. My grandfather, even before from the 60s, used to go to America for vacation and always loved it. And so I did come already like 2 or 3 times. And I wasn't coming as often as my family because I wasn't really a good student in high school. I mean, I never flunked, but I used to be sent to summer school, quite often. So most of my summers were in Italy while my family were vacationing in Florida or California or whatever. But I did manage to come a few times. So I was in America before. My first trip to America, actually, I was 8 years old. And I remember, we did pretty much everything. We did Boston, New York, Florida, California, New Orleans, and I saw my first Broadway show, which was West Side Story, which I loved it. Yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal. And ironically, the very first town I visited was Boston. And the reason why I call Bridge Entertainment Bridge, because Bridge is the little bridge that is on the park of Boston, in the center of Boston. So I remember looking at the bridge when I was a kid. So I wanted to use it for my company. And I always loved the United States. I love South America too. I mean, I have a lot of, especially Central America. I mean, I know pretty much every country in Central America. Guatemala, I've been to Guatemala maybe 20 times or something. Mexico, unfortunately, I know less. I've been only 2 or 3 times to Mexico, but I've been, to pretty much everywhere else. And in South America, I only know Brazil very well. And my wife was Brazilian, and beside her, I have a lot of Brazilian friends. So I used to travel a lot to Brazil, maybe twice a year. So I've been to Brazil many, many times. So I really have a connection with the American continent, and I feel home every time I'm across the ocean. But, I'm Italian. I love Italy, and it's a great country, and I'm happy to be back. I miss America, but at the moment, I don't foresee coming back to live there. Obviously, I will come to visit, and I haven't been back in a while, actually. My mom is in Florida right now, but I think it's time for me to be in Rome for a while, and who knows what the future is going to hold, yeah.
So many changes. Even what I think for any one of us who is in entertainment or in a business type, the ideas and the goals that we had at the beginning of 2020, by March, they were completely changed.
Absolutely.
And now into 2021, it's like trying to adjust into what we're everybody's what we're calling the new normal. This is normal. This is life right.
It's funny that you say that. There is a little content issue that I'm running a script for a TV pilot, which I don't know if it's ever going to make it to TV, but we are going to pitch it either to Netflix or Amazon here in Italy. And the lady who came up with the idea, the original treatment is not mine. It's from a lady which is about 70 now. She's an actress, a former model, a singer. I mean, somebody who is in the 70s had a big name here in Italy, then kind of wear out a little bit. Now she's back with theater and everything. And she approached me asking if I wanted to write a script based on an idea that she had, which I thought was a very interesting idea. So I am developing the script. And just yesterday we had a meeting, and we were discussing whether or not put COVID in the script, because now it's becoming something that we are living with. And I decided not to. One, because I don't know how to handle it. I mean, it's not something that it's so real now that I don't know how to fictionalize it. And also, I don't want to have every single character, wearing masks and things like that. So I'm like, hopefully by the time we go in production, the COVID will be over. So it will be only a parenthesis. And if it's not over, we'll manage to do it maybe before, everything is going to be set up before the COVID happened. I don't want to deal with it. I'm not ready. My brain, my creativity is not ready to deal with it. Because we deal with it in real life, and I don't want to deal with it. It's kind of funny. A lot of people are going the other direction, and
But that's an interesting topic because, for instance, for all the hospital series,
yes,
like Grey's Anatomy and Type, any show like that, it was so easy for them to
yeah,
make COVID a
yes,
character storyline. And although in the future it's going to be a little dated because you know exactly when that happened,
yeah,
it's interesting that for a writer, uh, where you want to, I mean, if I'm going to read your book or watch your movie, I
hmm
want to be taken away from reality. And if you put that into it, I know there is no longer, there's a very blurred line between reality and fiction.
yeah. Yeah, that is absolutely correct. It's also true that most of my work started before the COVID. I was already way into my books, in March. And some of my books actually come back of 12, 13 years ago because they were treatment of screenplays, scripts that I wrote and never made into movies. So now readapting them into novels, of course, I'm updating them, to today and things like that. But they were already started, the characters are already developed and the plots are already developed, and COVID just doesn't fit. I mean, that wouldn't fit. I'm not saying that in the future I wouldn't deal with it, but kind of like the same thing that happened with September 11. I remember in 2001, although September 11 was obviously a New York thing, was not something, it was emotionally involving, but it was not a virus. However, I never wrote a line, anything, a poem or anything on September 11. I just couldn't do it. It was too real. One thing is to talk about it. I would write an essay about it. I would write maybe a non-fiction book, one day, or who knows. But I don't think fiction fits there. I don't know. That's for me. That's not a general idea. I'll be more than happy to read and watch people that deal with it. I just, for myself, I'm not ready to do it.
Yeah, because that you're right. But it's the ripple effect.
Yes.
9/11, although yes, if you were in New York and you were in ground zero, and obviously those folks were more affected, but the ripple effect that happened throughout the United States and then to the rest of the world,
Yes.
it did become a character in some plots, in some storylines.
Mm-hmm.
How many shows did we know of that, for instance, I believe Sex and the City was one of them that removed
Yes.
the from the beginnings. They removed the towers from the.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it did make an impact. COVID
Spider-Man
is
too. Remember
yeah,
Spider-Man?
yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't it for a while?
Yeah.
So I think that COVID in its COVID. Well, obviously we all know the ripple effect that
Yeah.
it's caused around the world.
Mm.
Um, but I don't. Yes, you're right. I don't think everything in life needs to be a character in a storyline.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit because you're talking about your business.
Yeah.
When you decided when your business partner and your friend passes,
Yes.
how hard is it for a business owner to say we're shutting down?
It was very hard. It was very hard because you put so much into it, especially in the artistic world. And if you have a company like my factory, my family factories and things like that, there is a connection with your workers, and there is also responsibility. That if you're head of the company, there are people and families that depend on your decisions. So if you make a mistake, it's not just that you lose money or you lose a contract or whatever, you also jeopardize the future or the stability of families, of people that work for you and trust your decisions, in running the company. In the case of Bridge Entertainment, we didn't really have too many employees. It was local collaborators and associates and things like that. So we didn't really have people on the payroll. But there was the emotional side of it. We engaged several people with different projects, and the fact that those projects didn't come to life was very hard. And when Michael died, some of the people told me, please, let's keep on pushing those scripts and things like that. And I didn't do it. I only kept one, which we kept on pushing it, and unfortunately again Hollywood say no, and then at the end I gave up. But it was more of an artistic, emotional thing more than a company business thing. And it was hard. But what's the hardest part actually in the time frame, more than shutting the company, was the fact that I had two major scripts, which one of them was stolen from me. I mean, literally, here in Italy, and it was the only Italian project I had written by me, and it was stolen. All the production companies in Italy say it was a great idea, but it would never work in Italy, so they advised me to do it in America. But to me, it was a very Italian story. And 5 years later, somebody made the movie. It was exactly the same. I mean, it was basically my story. I mean, it's not similar or anything. It was definitely stolen. I mean, we ended up in trial with judges and everything. Movie came out, made $25 million. I mean, million euros actually. So it's about $30 million. And it was horrible. I mean, that's really that. When that thing happened, it was, for me, it was either fight all the way to death or kill my interest to film. And I decided to kill the interest to film because it was like if one of my children were kidnapped or something, and I just divorced my wife. And the main reason why, unfortunately, I got divorced because my mind was always in Hollywood and was not in the marriage. I mean, I didn't do anything crazy. I was very loyal to my wife and I love her to death. And we had actually a very stable marriage. But unfortunately, on the key element, like for example, having children or things like that, my mind was still in the film, always in the film. So when I decided that for me, film was not anymore the medium for storytelling for me, because there are too many levels and too many filters in film. Money, production companies, actors, editors. I mean, it's never your tool. Even if you're directing, it's not your tool. So I said, I'm a writer. I want to tell stories through what I write. So instead of using the film, let's use what writers do, books. So let me, go back to the original, pen and paper, and now it's all computers, and that's what it is, and I really, really, really enjoyed that, because novels are more complete than a film. You can do whatever you want. There are no boundaries, except for your own imagination. And it's beautiful. And then if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, still, it's something that you did it, and move to the next project.
How many times do we hear people say, "Oh, the book was better"? Well, of course,
Yeah.
the book was better.
Yeah.
So it's freedom.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, let me remind everybody, we're halfway through the show. If you're watching us, this is Put Together Conversations. I'm your host, Daniel G. Garza, and today my guest is entrepreneur and entertainment person, Mr. Giacomo and Rosa. We're talking about filmmaking, following your passions, and right now my question is, would you consider yourself a workaholic?
Yes, I am. I definitely am. And I'm at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, I don't consider this work. This is social pleasure, meeting, talking to you and seeing you online and everything. But I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning because I was writing, right before I connected with you. And probably I'm going to go to sleep after this. But yes, I'm definitely a workaholic, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing. And I think there is something to be said about private life. And even though you enjoy working and what you do, it's great. I think there should be always a time in life in which you really should separate yourself from work. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that, especially now with the COVID. I mean, it's even worse because there's very little things. You cannot go watch a movie. You cannot go, to a museum. Yeah, thank God we can still walk down the street, which in Europe is a great thing to do. But, we cannot have dinners. I mean, restaurants are open only for lunch, but not for dinner. And, a lot of people are scared to gather because, transmitting the COVID. And so what you stay home and work,
Because it sounds similar when Christian and I got together.
Yep.
I've always been a workaholic. I love working. I wake up with the computer, with my phone in my hand, and I go to bed with my computer. And until one day he just stopped and told me, he's like, I'm not going to be plan B. Like you choose me first, or this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And I realize what a selfish lover the entertainment business can be. It really demands a lot of attention. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it's a poison. It's a, you know, I used to go to the Cannes Festival, you know, in France every year. I stopped going about 2011. I think that's the last time I went. And every time, you know, you'll meet the same people, you know, from Los Angeles, from all over the world, will go there, and for about 10 days, you know, then whoever is involved in filmmaking at any level is in Cannes. And the big joke was, when did you get the disease? You know, because, you know, I was 12, I was 13, I watched Star Wars when I was a kid, I got the disease. It's, you know, to make fun of the virus, you know, it is a virus. I mean, it gets you and it never goes away. It's, and it can be really, really poisoning. I mean, that's another reason why I love to write, because I write to myself, and every writer that says otherwise is lying. You do write for yourself. At least the first draft is always for yourself. Then once it's finished, you give it to the open, and then, you know, it becomes, you know, it belongs to everybody else's. But actually, there is a step in the middle. You write to yourself, then the characters take over, then the characters own the book, and then the readers eventually own the book. And but, you know, it's what it is. It is a virus, and it's again, it cost me a lot. Again, it cost me my marriage, and which is probably was the most important thing in my life. And I realized that, you know, too late. And I still wear my wedding band. You know, it's I mean, it went beyond the, you know, the marriage. Now it has a very also religious meaning to me, but it's definitely linked to a period of my life which I know that I made some mistakes, and every time I look at this ring, I know I shouldn't make the same mistake. So I try to be a better person, or, you know, at least I think I was a good person. I wasn't a bad person, but at least make better choices. Let's put it like this.
That's really interesting. I'm going to be bold enough to say, because
Sure.
I was telling you before, like, I just turned 50, and I'm very
Yeah.
happy over 50. And you have a birthday coming up this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna be 50 as well.
Come to the dark side, Giacomo.
Yes.
In your 50 years of life and in your career, what do you think is one of the most important lessons you've learned in your life?
Most important lesson I learned in my life is sometimes I should put myself on the side, and you know, remove the I from the picture, and maybe put a little bit we in there, or they, you know, on a broader term. And you know, I think the I sometimes has been a little bit too present in my life, and it still is, and I still working on myself. And but that's probably the biggest lesson that again, I'm still working on it, so I cannot say I fully learned, but at least I'm aware of it, which I think is a great step forward.
You know, from my work as a spiritual coach and working with people, and getting, which we'll have to talk, we'll have to work on it. But it's difficult because like I was just saying, entertainment is a very selfish lover, and it wants all your attention. When I launched Lilmesican Productions and I decided to do all this, I knew I'm the production company. Like, Christian helps me with projects, but like, I have to put it out and get my guest, and it's like, it's a lot, and it's very easy to say, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and then the people that help you look at you like, what about us?
I know. Exactly. There is one thing to say about that. It's also the fact that this is more of a business career thing than a personal inner thing. But I always felt that if you really want to make it in the entertainment business, you have to be independent. In other words, you don't have to worry about what's going to be the outcome. And the outcome will come if there is talent, if there is quality, if there is something meaningful or fun or entertainment in what you are about to say or do. It will find its way. It's like life. It will find its way. I mean, think about the most successful. Think about Star Wars. Star Wars is by far the most successful commercial movie in the history of movies. I mean, there is obviously, if everybody relates to Star Wars as a very commercial movie. Star Wars was an independent movie. Was made with $11 million, which back then was a very low budget. he couldn't get money from the studios. And that was his luck, because nobody wanted to pay for the script. So guess what? He owned all the rights. And he ended up making all the rest on his own. Walt Disney, the same thing. Walt Disney was bankrupt. Nobody cared about the little Mickey Mouse thing. But guess what? He did the sound. And since because he had the sound, when sound movies actually came along, he was the only one with the animated version of sound cartoons. And the rest is history. And right now, Disney, which is I'm not necessarily enjoying what Disney is doing as a company nowadays, but it's still independent. I mean, regardless, everything that is these days started with the little mouse. Yeah. So it's amazing. Apple, the same thing. I mean, even Netflix. I mean, all those things that are giants now started really small. Harry Potter. Everybody turned it down. She believed in it. She couldn't care less about people reading Harry Potter. She wrote it the way she wanted it. Now, you might like it or dislike it. I'm not, necessarily endorsing the quality of Harry Potter, which I do because I love it. But, it wasn't a commercial thing. It was actually a very independent, very creative effort. In fact, Harry Potter worked. Everybody else's couldn't do it. Everybody tried to copycat it and couldn't do it. So I think, in a smaller term, what we do with our, everyday thing, I think it's more important than the audience and the clicks, than the likes that you get, because eventually, if it's worth it, they will come. Otherwise, still, it's something in the air. We were talking about morning tea before. I don't know how many people watch morning tea, but, it affected me. It was very powerful experience for me. Probably was. I'm sure it was extremely powerful for you that you were doing in the first person, and it was great. Now 10 people watch it, 10,000 people watch it. Does it really matter? I don't know. Maybe for a business point of view, yes, it does. But from a personal, spiritual effort, it doesn't make any difference. You touched people, and that's what it counts.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that in the production. There are still folks that remember it, and will message me sometimes like, "Hey, are you ever going to do it again?" Which it graduated into the Card Devo, which is what we do now. But you're right. And for those of you watching, you're going to say this is not a very good business way of looking at things. But there was a time when Put It Together started.
Yeah.
I was on a mission. I am going to be the next Barbara Walters and the next Oprah, and I'm going to take. And then that didn't work because obviously there's already a Barbara Walters and Oprah. So okay, I'm going to be the best Daniel Garza possible.
Yeah.
And I was asking tough questions and how. And then cancer came into my life, and after cancer, I thought I really just want to get to know people.
Yeah.
If you're interesting, and this is why at the end of the show I always tell folks. If you have a Put It Together story, or you know somebody who does, send it my way.
Yeah.
Because I want to know about life.
Yeah.
I want to know how to be a person. And yes, I want more numbers. Of course, I want more numbers.
Of course.
But this is again, humbly I say, this is a beautiful example of.
No.
The reason we connected was because I saw you guys commenting. I was like, somebody's watching my stuff. I got it, and here we are, 11 years later. So.
No, but like I said, it's. I wasn't, saying that we shouldn't be successful. What I'm saying is success comes when there is something real. I mean, it doesn't come because you build it on a studio. It never works. It never works. Being a movie, being a business, being whatever. If there is not a soul, the soul needs to be real. You cannot lie. I mean, like a singer, if you have a voice, Frank Sinatra was a great singer because he had a voice, regardless of his private life, Las Vegas, all the big, he was Frank Sinatra because he could sing, period. If you cannot sing, you don't go on stage, and again, same thing with anything else, same thing with a doctor. A good doctor is the one that, really spends time to cure people. Is not somebody that only cares about driving the next Porsche or the next Ferrari, and that's it. It comes to human beings and to be honest to what you do, and what you were saying before about the cancer thing. It's very real. I remember in morning tea, the real life thing was touching. And you were not talking about, I'm sick, yesterday. No, you were talking about, regular stuff, everyday life. Today I went shopping, tomorrow I do this, and, things like that. And you need that. I watch opera or I watch these big shows. It's all, I wouldn't say fake, but it's built. It's like, exactly when you have to cry, exactly when you have to laugh. I mean, I don't want that. Real life is not like that. I was on a funeral the other day, unfortunately. A very good friend of mine passed away, 40 years old. He had a heart attack, and a very talented musician. And we were all sitting down, and we were laughing and having a good time. Of course, we were crying too, but the spirit was there, because you cannot just fake it. There are moments you want to say a joke, you want to remember him smiling, and I think today entertainment, especially TV, is missing that real. It's kind of funny because we were talking about reality shows, we were talking about real, and it's probably TV has been the fakest ever. There is probably more reality in fiction than there is in reality TV.
Yeah. Well, we're at the 45-minute mark, and at this point is when I usually like to ask my guests to share some words of wisdom with the people watching and listening. So, Giacomo La Rosa, what words of wisdom would you like to share?
A word of wisdom I would like to share. It's a very good one. You got me on the spot now. I would say probably, I don't know if it's really wisdom, but it's something that leads to wisdom, which is respect. I think having respect to the others leads you to listen. And when you listen, you get wiser, and your intelligence definitely gets broader. So I would say respect.
That's very legit, because I think
Yeah.
we do lose it. We're in we're in such a competition right now. Everybody's competing for space, attention,
Yeah.
work, uh, life, um, that we lose that. And I hope I don't. I hope I've been respectful of people,
Yeah.
but it's how do you maintain your respect for yourself and others?
And respect to it's kind of funny. I think you actually very good point. I never thought about it, and now that you mention it, it's probably much harder to keep respect to yourself than it is to others, because others there is a sort of politeness that comes along, and unless you're really a psycho or a crazy person, it's actually easier to handle yourself with others. But with yourself, to be respectful to yourself, it means not lie to yourself. It's very hard. But anyway, socially, obviously, which is what we most of us do, I think again goes back to listening. You need to know what the other person is saying. That doesn't mean you have to agree or you have to necessarily say yes, but you need to listen. I mean, going back to the entertainment business, the best actors are the one that listen. They're not the one that deliver the lines. Meryl Streep, Robert De Niro, Jack Nicholson, they listen. They are in the scene. They don't need to talk, but they are present. The best musicians, they listen. And that's how you keep the respect. If I just watch your mouth moving, but I don't really listen because I'm thinking of what I need to say and how good I look or how many people I can impress in a room, it's already a lack of respect.
You know what? I will back you up on that, because one of the things that doing interviews, I was just talking to some other people. They thought I was new at interviewing people. I'm like, no, you've only seen a year of video shows. But actually, December 1st, I celebrated 15 years in the entertainment business. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm 15 years into it. I'm like, I've learned over the years to listen, because my questions are based on what you're saying.
Yeah,
And if I have a question already prepared, I'm not listening to anything you say. Like
of course,
um,
of course.
but right, being good to ourselves sometimes is so difficult, because we think it's greedy and selfish to do that, but it's really
Yeah,
not. Does that make
absolutely,
sense?
absolutely. It makes a lot of sense, and I think it really goes cross boundaries. I don't believe that cultures make it, the respect is the same. you might, I mean, it might come to certain instances, obviously, where there is a clear difference in culture, the way you eat or the way you do certain things that can be disrespectful. But overall, the real respect, the real, people to people respect, I think is really cross boundaries. I mean, I think it gets instantaneous. You can understand it right away, and I never saw, people really get into a fight because poor cultural things. I mean, people really get into fights because you offend the person in a higher level. You don't get offended because somebody eats with the hands. I mean, you might joke about it, you might laugh about it, but you're not gonna get offended.
That's awesome. Okay, so the last question we have about 10 minutes ago. One of the last questions I have for you.
Yeah.
If you were to describe Giacomo La Rosa for me, if you were somebody watching, how would you describe him?
I think a full romantic that still believes that with a good heart, you can run a business and you can run companies and influence people, and in a positive way, obviously. And also, I'm a true Christian. That's something we haven't touched yet. And I'm always very careful in using that word and that sentence, because right now there's a political connotation which I don't like. But I think there is a spirituality in God that is very strong, and I happen to be Catholic, so I am a really devoted Catholic. That doesn't mean I do touch sometimes. I put the Catholic topics in my work, but it's not necessarily. I'm not I'm not a priest, so obviously I don't have to write as a Catholic dogma. But there is a certain way of being, or certain way of looking at things, which I think somehow are connected to the higher level. When you believe that, going back to the removing the I, there is a moment in which, if you really believe that there is a higher entity, we need to respond to it as well. We cannot deny that it exists if you believe it. And I respect a lot people that don't believe it, people that are atheists. I always say atheists are the most believers, because if you don't believe in something, that means you really believe in it. And
I was raised Catholic too, and I still
yeah.
believe post rehab, when I got sober, there was definitely a bit of a connection to God. And I went and I was like, God, where were you? And God's like, I was here, dude. Where were you?
Yeah.
I've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
And then post cancer, I believe in the miracles that God made available for me, but I also believe in the path that the universe has before me.
Yeah.
And but yes, don't know that before you say anything, I can be a little selfish and I am a little greedy. And
Yes.
I'm very vain, so I will not deny that.
Yeah, but we all are. I think I'm the biggest sinner, I'm probably going to do, I don't think I belong in hell, but probably some purgatory, I think I will do it.
I'm sure the only way I'll get into heaven is
Yeah.
if I bring tacos. I'm going to show tacos to everybody.
Yeah.
Let me in.
Yeah.
We're coming to the end.
Yeah.
Any last words before we go?
No, just, I wanted to thank you, for putting this together, and, wishing you all the best luck, in the other shows. I think you're doing a marvelous job, and I hope that this 2021 will be good for everybody. I really wish to all our listeners and whoever is tuned in to watch, that their families and whatever will be healthy. It's we enter in a different world, and probably the world is never going to go back to the way we used to. And I hope that we can all learn from this experience, and hopefully really give a better world to the next generation. I really hope so. I mean, being 50, certain things we already done it, and probably we are done with certain things, although we're going to continue on doing things for the next, hopefully, 50 years. But obviously the world, we have a duty to give the word to the next generation, and I hope they're going to be healthy and happy, and I hope the COVID will be over very soon.
And if folks want to find your work, where can they go?
They can find it at gacho.com. They can find it on Amazon. You just Google my name, Giacomo Rosa. I'm pretty much everywhere. The first book, The House of My Dreams, has been out for several years. The second book, 27 Doors, it's coming out. And we are in the final editing, polishing, and whatnot. So I think hopefully will be out for the spring. And then there is another one that hopefully will be out in Christmas. And I try to keep my website updated all the time. I'm not on Facebook. I am on Facebook, but I don't use it anymore. And I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, of course. And I might go back to Facebook, but I'm not ready yet for it. So the page is there, but I haven't really updated. I think in a couple of years, actually.
And for those people that are interested, that we'll put all the links where you can find them.
Thank you.
Will you come back when the spring book comes out and talk
No,
about
absolutely. I love that. Thank you very much. I'll definitely love that. And also I would love to hear your opinion, once you read it. It's an interesting story. I was actually my Harvard thesis, in my master's, and it was a short story back then. It was a novella, actually, rather. And now I really turned it into a full novel. So the plot is still the same, but the characters have been developed, and the subplots have been added and things like that. So it's fun. I love to write.
I'm excited, and please put us on your promotional tour.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Don't go away. Let me say goodbye to everybody. For everybody watching, thank you so much for joining us. This has been another episode of Put Together Conversations. I'm your host, Daniel Garza. Our guest today was author and entrepreneur Giacomo La Rosa. Make sure to go check them out. I want to thank my director, Christian Paul Ramirez, my audio producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers from Abnormal Entertainment, my video producer, Mr. Jose Reyes from Hubris Management, and my agent, Ms. Jennifer Sims at RPM Talent. All the links and information for them are also going to be wherever you're watching. Remember, if you're on Facebook, follow the page, share with your friends. If you're watching us on YouTube, will you please give us a like and share and subscribe to the page? And if you're on Twitter, would you just retweet this and share it with your friends? Make sure that they follow us. Remember, we are here every Saturday at noon and 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with 2 guests on every Saturday. On Wednesday, you can find us on the Christian and Daniel Show with my partner Christian at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Fridays with the Card Devo for an hour of reading sessions. You can join us that at 6 p.m. also Pacific Standard Time. There's a lot going on. So if you have a put together story and you want to come on the show, please send me an email. Again, go below and you'll find in the description. There's the email right there. Make sure that you send me an email. Tell me your story and come on the show and share it. But if you know somebody who you think has an awesome put together story, I would love to sit down and share it with my listeners. So please let them nominate them and we'll have them on the show. For now, I just want to thank Giacomo La Rosa for being on the show. And hey, this is Daniel Garza saying, put it together. We'll see you next time.